Hi, I'm Jennifer Bate-Coffin, and we're coming to you from the Glowing Body Yoga Studio in Knoxville, Tennessee. And today we're going to do a class with bolsters, but not your traditional restorative or yin class where the bolster is a means of supporting something relaxing. We're going to be a little bit more dynamic today and work on some postures with support where we can actually find some more dynamic action because of the support. I'm joined by Megan, Teresa, and Sarah, and we're going to start with wide angle child's pose. So get your bolster, and we're going to spread the knees out wide about the width of the mat. You can go a little wider than that if you like. Hug that bolster up next to your pelvis, and then we'll drape over. Resting your head in one direction, whatever is your favorite, and then we'll flip the head during the course of the hold so that we can do justice to both sides of the neck. So we're going to relax here for a few minutes, taking some time to feel some of that extension through the inner leg line, some decompression in the lower spine. So with the support of the bolster, we can really feel the weight of the hips settling down. We don't have that urge to push forward into the knee joints or into the hip creases. We can really settle back into the weight of the pelvis, allowing the lower spine to decompress, allowing the shoulder blades to spread out across the upper rib cage, and really giving ourselves a chance to connect with our breathing before we start moving on into some more vigorous things that might challenge our breath. So this will be a real experience that we can carry through our practice. So take some full deep breaths here and really feel the rib cage getting broader at the base. On the exhale, we're going to feel that base contract back in toward the spine. And just noticing the anatomical action of your breathing as the lungs fill and empty. And see if you can create a more generous, rich, rhythmic breath with each breath cycle. Feel the support of the bolster and allow any tension you might be harboring in the tops of the shoulders or around the neck to relax. And again, if one side of your neck is feeling like it's done, turn your face and rest the other cheek on your bolster. And we'll take a few more deep breaths here. Feeling a little more centered and ready. Making that mind-body connection before we move on to some more challenging things. So one more good long inhalation and a final extended exhalation. And we'll begin to slowly make our way up. So walking your hands back, letting the vertebrae stack. And then we're going to move on to Wheel of Life pose, which is a twist, which will be supported by the bolster. So we're going to slide that bolster forward. We'll flip over onto our left hip, getting the bolster right next to your hip. We're going to take the left shin to the outer right edge of your mat and the right shin to the back edge of your mat. We will take the left hand out for support. Take a big breath, lifting and lengthening away from the pelvis, and as we exhale, we rotate and lower across the bolster, extending the right arm overhead and extending the left hand out. So you can get on flat hand or on fingertips here, whatever feels more supportive for you. You might find a little bend in the elbows is helpful as well. You may start out with bent elbows and then maybe move into extended arms. But we want to try and let the pelvis and hips feel nice and heavy. Letting the weight of the legs anchor us down so that the central axis of the body can extend and be supported by the bolster. And we'll take deep breaths here. We're going to feel a really great kind of cross stretch happening, feeling it from the outer right hip to the left armpit, and then from the top to the inside armpit. So feeling some of those actions happening with this support can be really revealing in terms of what we might be holding on to in the back or in the waist or in the hips. Okay, one more good long inhalation. Nice extended exhale, feeling the support of the bolster one last time. And then on the inhale, we're going to slide the hands in, framing the bolster. And then we'll slowly prop ourselves up. And then we're going to flip it. So we just turn toward the back edge of the mat, flip the direction of our legs. You probably have to readjust your bolster so that it's close to your hip. We've got the shin to the outer edge, the back shin to the back edge. Take your right hand out for support. Lift and lengthen as you inhale, and then feel your torso draping across the bolster. Turning your gaze to the right, left arm extends overhead. Letting yourself progressively feel the support beneath you, the weight of the legs and the pelvis on the back side of the bolster anchoring you down, so that you can feel the cross reference happening in the torso and in the hips. Make sure your shoulder blades are reaching out toward the arms so that we're not congesting the neck and shoulders. Maybe feeling a more generous breath developing as we surrender a bit to the support of the bolster. Feel the weight of your skull and allow the back and sides of your neck to relax. And then we'll take one more generous breath in and extended exhale out. And then we'll slide the hands back, framing the bolster, pressing ourselves up away from the bolster, and we'll move on to hands and knees here. Flipping your bolster so that it's parallel with the front edge of your mat. We'll take the hands out in front so that the forearms are underneath the bolster, and we're going to work into downward facing dog. So bring your hips back towards your heels, lift the back of your head, and then we'll extend. And we'll take some soothing movement here, so maybe wiggle around, feeling the hips and the shoulders and the torso, what's been revealed. With the bolster in this position, we are less pressing back with the forearms and the upper arms. So noticing how you can keep your upper back more open with that help. From here, we're going to move into half pigeon. So take a nice big deep breath. We'll lift the right foot up, and then we're going to carefully make our way forward, clearing the bolster and lowering the shin, the foot, and the knee toward the floor, keeping your hip on your bolster. We want to internally rotate this back leg. So point the toes. Feel the top of the femur on the left leg rolling toward the bolster, and we're going to give a nice press down into the right femur. on our fingertips here, we're going to give the bolster a squeeze. So we're going to drag the back leg in toward the bolster, the front leg back toward the bolster. And what this will do will give us some reference for moving into the anterior spine, the front of the spine. That is a weight-bearing part of the spine, so it's very important for core strength and for keeping the posterior spine nice and healthy. So inhale deeply. Now give that bolster a squeeze as you exhale. And just take a few breaths with that. Starting to feel some opening in the right hip, but also some activity from within the pelvis all the way up the lower spine. Maybe feeling that extending into the upper regions of the spine as well. One more deep breath here. A nice squeeze on that bolster. Inhale. And then on the exhale, one forearm down at a time. And we'll karate chop the floor. So we'll take the pinky fingers down so that we can press down through the bones of the forearms and the elbows and feeling the outer arm pressing out. So we're not collapsing down here, but rather encouraging a nice open environment around the upper spine. We're squeezing on that bolster, trying to feel the whole top of the left foot pressing down, feeling the shin and the outer right foot grounding as well. And because we're having this squeeze on with the inner legs here, we can keep the right hip crease clear, and we are not going to overburden the right knee. And we're getting much more external rotation out of the right thigh. Really big, deep breaths. Helping the body to relax as we get a little more dynamic with each posture that we take. So there's a lot going on here, and I think my friends here would agree. There's not just a hip opening aspect, but we're really becoming more aware of that inner line from the insides of the legs through the pelvis and all the way along the spine, where we're using those deeper postural muscles that we might tend to ignore, especially in pigeon pose. So just kind of firing up from the inside toward the outside, softening the outside edges with this hip opening, but engaging the interior. And one or two more deep breaths here. Feel the forearms rooting down, and maybe you feel your pelvis slide back some over that bolster as you give another little squeeze. Great. And one hand down, and then the other, we're going to stay down. So we're long through the upper spine, pressing into the floor, inhaling. Now as we exhale, we're going to wave ourselves up, and then we'll plant the hands, and we're going to try and clear the bolster. So picking the front of the pelvis up, clear the bolster. We're back in our downward dog. Forearms are probably hitting the bolster again. So again, we're less pressing. Open up that upper back, maybe wiggle around a little bit, feel what's happening with that right hip now versus the left, and then we'll take it on the left side. So pick your left foot up away from the floor, and with control, trying to clear the bolster. If you can't clear it on first try, get your shin on the bolster, and then you can move your hip forward, lowering your shin, knee, and foot to the floor. So let's find that squeeze. Extend your right leg behind you. Make sure your right foot is flat on the floor. Feeling the shin and the outer foot against the floor as well. Take a big breath, lifting into the chest. And then as we exhale, we give a squeeze. So we're dragging that right leg in, left leg back. Notice if your rib cage wants to pop forward. See if you can just temper it and hug those lower ribs back some. So we're feeling our focus become more about the interior of the pelvis upward, rather than trying to make our way through this space between the arms. Starting to feel that outer left hip opening up. Inhale deeply, one forearm down at a time, and again, we'll karate chop the floor so that we've got some good leverage out of the bones in the arms. And this also encourages us not to collapse. So with this press down through the pinky side of the hand into the elbow, we can really feel the upper back broadening. And we're squeezing that bolster. it doesn't have to be a real super effort-filled action. See if you can find that balance between being relaxed and opening the hip in that kind of traditional pigeon way, but also feeling that inner line firing up. Feeling the pelvis heavy down toward the bolster rather than pushing forward into the crease of the hip or into the knee joint. Feeling the cervical spine clearing by tucking the chin toward the throat a little. Feeling the bones of the legs supported by the bolster so we can start to soften muscularly and really begin to recognize the muscles that we tend to ignore, that we're trying to wake up with this action. One more good breath here. Feeling the weight of the pelvis heavy as you exhale. And then we'll slide the hands back. Hovering just above your mat here. Lengthen your spine as you inhale. Pressing as we exhale. Up. And then we'll tuck the back toes. Pick the front of the pelvis up away from the bolster, trying to clear it. And sliding back into your downward dog. Feeling a different downward dog now. One that has allowed us to maybe draw back toward the wall behind us some more. But again, we've got that bolster there to stop us from flattening the armpits. We want to feel the armpits starting to open up like a baseball mitt, ready to catch a ball. Okay, we're going to walk the feet forward. So we'll take a big breath, step 1 foot forward, and then the other. And then we're going to take our bolster, and we're going to stand it up and place it in between the inner legs. And so hug your feet and inner legs close to the bolster. Give it a nice squeeze. From here, we're going to take a big breath, lengthening the spine. And then as we exhale, we'll fold, placing your fingertips on the floor. So most of us are the same height. The bolster's probably, this edge of the bolster's probably going to hit us just beneath the sternum, which can be a good reference for not rounding yourself toward the bolster. So once your sternum hits that spot, then try and lengthen away from that while you squeeze. So feeling the inner ankles squeezing toward the block, that's going to carry you all the way up the inner leg. And then at the top, give it a nice squeeze, which will activate the lower attachments of the psoas, taking us all the way up into the lower spine. Shoulder blades are broad, reaching out for the arms. A little tuck of the chin to keep the cervical spine nice and open. A few full deep breaths here. Notice where the weight is in your feet. If everything's pitching forward into the ball of your foot, maybe draw some back into the heels and find a good balance there. Lifting your toes can also be a huge help for activating the arches of the feet, helping you to work up into that line from the floor up. Right, inhale deeply. We'll gaze up, and then we're going to step the feet out. We'll take our bolsters and place them down in front of us. Frame the bolster with your hands, and we're going to step it back into plank. So now we've got that reference for that inner line through the inner legs there, pressing into the hands, and feel that activated here, as if you were still squeezing that bolster. Working down into a supported Chaturanga. Inhale deeply, bend the elbows back toward the wall behind us, and we lower onto the bolster, and instead of just flopping down, we're still active. We're pressing the hands down. Take a look at your hands. If they're forward of the elbows, slide them back. Go ahead and slide them back. There we go. All right, and feel the legs muscularly active, the upper back engaged, pubic bone is tipping toward the bolster. So again, it may not look like much, but boy, is it fiery. We're going to lift a plank from here. So give a firm press into your hands like you're imprinting them into something. Feel your pubic bone tip toward the bolster and feel your navel trying to clear the bolster. Inhale deeply. Exhale, we'll lift. Good. Inhale deeply. Exhale, we lower down again with control. Supported by the bolster, but still in all of the action, as if the bolster wasn't there. We're pressing the hands, the backs of the arms are lifting toward the ceiling, the legs are muscularly active, pubic bone is tipping toward the bolster. Good. Inhale deeply. Exhale to plank again. Good. Inhale. One more supported chaturanga as we exhale. Good. Maybe feeling it in the arms a little more now. Okay, now we're going to spread the feet out about the width of the bolster. Bend your knees a little bit so that you can squeeze the bolster in between your thighs. So you might kind of catch some of that cotton right in between the legs so you can give it a squeeze. Keeping the toes tucked. Inhale deeply, lengthening the upper spine. As we exhale, we're going to wave up into upward facing dog. Nice and supported here. So we don't have that urge to push through the arms. We've got support under the pelvis and we can feel this broadening happening across the upper chest. Take a few deep breaths here. And then we're going to flatten the left foot. So go ahead and flatten that out. And press into it. Lift your chest as you inhale. Now turn your gaze to the right as you exhale. And we'll feel that left psoas get a great stretch. We're supported by the bolster, so we don't have to worry about the hips and the pelvis so much. Good. Inhale back to center. As we exhale, tuck the left toes. Inhale and exhale, flatten the right foot. Press down into it. Inhale deeply and exhale, turning. Keep pressing into the top of the foot. Keep the chest broad. Good. Inhale back to center. Exhale. We tuck the toes. Back into plank. So press into the hands. Inhale. Lifting through the front of the pelvis as we exhale. Inhale. And exhale, downward facing dog. Maybe your forehead reaches the bolster and can rest. Letting the top of your head reach down into the bolster. So we're really experiencing some of that length in the upper spine that we can often neglect in downward dog. Okay, good. From here, we're going to lift the head away from the bolster. Step your feet out the width of your mat. And we're going to walk the hands back. Take your bolster, slide it back in between your ankles and heels. And again, we're going to squeeze it. So really work your feet in so that you can hug that bolster. And we're going to bend the knees. So we're going to imagine there's like a little stool behind us or something that we're going down to sit on, fingertips down on your mat. And from here, we're just going to start to feel that inner line developing. Feeling that we can move from the arches of the feet, up the inner legs, through the rib cage, and out through the top of the head. Okay, on an inhale, we'll take the arms up and we'll watch each other here. As we exhale, we're going to reach back. Keep your elbows bent. Take the sides of your thumbs onto your sacrum. Tuck your chin. We still have the knees bent. And we're going to work the inner arms toward each other. And up, as if someone's grabbed you by the back of the arm and they're kind of holding you up. Press into your feet. Feel a squeeze on that bolster. Take a big breath. Keep the knees bent, and as we exhale, we're going to extend the arms. Try not to drop your face through the legs, keeping that length in the spine, so the front ribs have to lift a little to accommodate that. Often in this kind of posture, we'll try and squeeze the shoulder blades together and drop them forward. Can you spread the shoulder blades out toward the arms? Squeezing on the bolster. Really feeling the inner body at work here. Good. Inhale deeply. As we exhale, we'll bend the elbows, place the thumbs back on the sacrum, and we'll release. And we'll just let ourselves hang for a moment here. Maybe your forehead drops toward the bolster for a nice release in the upper back. Good. On an inhale, we'll wave up a bit. As we exhale, we're going to take the bolster, slide it forward, And then we're going to make our way forward, bend the knees, and we'll lower into Virasana, hero pose. So get yourself a little more forward to the front of your bolster here. The contours of the arches of your feet can hug right up next to that bolster nicely. And if this feels like a lot for your knees still with a bolster underneath, you may incorporate a block or a blanket underneath your hips as well. So we'll take a few deep breaths here. And then we're going to work this into a backbend, a camel variation. But we'll start to feel if the pelvis might be tipping forward here. So you can even put your fingertips on your hip points, you can try that, and feel those just glide back, where we're letting the bottom rim of the pelvis settle onto the bolster more. And we want to try and keep that as we move into that back bend. And we'll talk about that once we get into it. But that's the place where we might tend to push forward or push away. So feel that weight settling. Feel a broadening across the collarbones and some space between the shoulder blades. Feeling the tops of the feet and the shins rooting. We'll take a deep breath here. Now we're going to take both hands back. Fingertips are going to point toward the toes, and we're going to lower the hands to the floor. So this is that point where your hips might want to start to lift away from your bolster. Let them drop down, and we'll take a big breath, expanding the upper lungs, lower lungs, gazing up, pressing the heels of your hands toward the floor. Maybe there's a little secret bend in your elbows if you need it. Feel the weight of your pelvis settling down. Imagine your tailbone is like your neck, and we want to try and achieve length in both of those areas. Good. Tuck your chin. And then as we exhale, we'll make our way up. Okay, great. Let's lift up away from our bolsters now. And we're going to come to our feet. And then we're going to flip the bolster again. Step out in front of it. And we're going to drop down into a squat. Okay, so feet are about mats width apart, and the heels are back next to the bolster. We're going to take the right arm up. And this kind of baseball mitt armpit that we were talking about earlier, we're going to now hook that around the shin. So reaching that around the shin as best you can. You might get it around the knee, right? So that's more of a ball in the mitt kind of feeling. But if you can get down lower, great. Putting your fingertips down onto your mat. Shake hands with the floor with your left hand. Feel your pelvis level out. So you're probably going to feel a lot going on in the right side. See if you can level out to the left. And then on an inhale, we're going to peel this open. So we got that nice open chest to work with. So take a look at your hand. Put it in a place where you can see it, where it's not a pain in the neck. And then we're going to follow the hand to turn the torso. So inhale deeply. As we exhale, let's start to move the hand back carefully. And then notice what's happening with the pelvis. Are you shifting a lot into the right? Can we shift some over into the left? Feel the head of your right humerus rolling back toward the leg. Good. Inhale deeply. As we exhale, we follow the hand back down. Now we're going to use this right arm as a lever to move ourselves into Virasana A. So this arm works as a lever to hold this leg back. We turn the torso forward, extend the left leg with the foot flexed. So again, we're trying to fit the contours of the body together. The armpit against the shin. Feel your pelvis level out and drop down into the bolster instead of trying to push forward. Take a big breath and then feel the inner body working. So remember what we felt when we squeezed the bolster in half pigeon, and see if you can feel some of that in the inner legs here. Again, the head of the humerus on each arm is rolling back. Tuck the chin a little to clear the neck. Feel the tailbone lengthening toward the bolster, and maybe not having so much trouble with the hamstrings here. With this support, we're going to tug less on the tendons at the sitting bones and behind the knees. Very nice. On an inhale, we'll scoop it back together. As we exhale, slide that left foot back, and we'll take that on the other side. So heels next to the bolster, we'll take the left arm up. On an inhale, as we exhale, we'll reach forward and around, and again, doing your best here to hook the armpit, fingertips down. Shake hands with the floor with the right hand. Feel your pelvis heavy, feel it leveling across left to right. And on an inhale, we'll peel this open. As we exhale, we start to follow the hand. So instead of just throwing the hand back to try and twist, just move the hand slowly. With each breath, you might find a little more movement through the torso. We're feeling the head of the humerus rolling back toward the legs, so we have some leverage. Feel the right side of your hip anchor down. Go ahead, inhale deeply. As we exhale, we follow that hand back down. And again, we use this left arm as a lever. So drawing that left shin back, we'll extend the right leg, working ourselves into Virasana A on this side. So not worrying about the bind that we will typically encounter in this posture, focusing more on the leverage we can achieve with the arm against the shin, with the head of the arm bone working back and revealing a more open chest. Heel can press down and we can lessen some of the stress on the back of the leg. So maybe feeling this more in the mid-hamstring than at the attachments. We never want to stretch those attachments. Those are tendons and they don't stretch. So feeling the inner body. Find that squeeze on the inner legs that we felt in that half pigeon some poses ago. Try and clear the upper spine. Feeling this left foot pressing down into the floor. Feel the weight of your pelvis supported. So there's some length that reveals itself in the lower back. Okay, a couple more deep breaths. Great. On an inhale, we'll bring it back together. As we exhale, we'll move back into that squat. Take a nice big deep breath. As we exhale, we'll come to standing. Take a standing forward bend here with as much bend in the knees as feels nice. Maybe shake your head yes and no, and just feel your shoulder blades moving up toward the ceiling and out toward the arms. A nice distribution of weight across the feet. Really letting the upper spine experience some length. Good. On an inhale, we'll gaze up, and then we're going to walk forward. You can cross up the ankles, and we'll lower down to a seat. And from here, we're going to lower into a back bend over the bolster. And from there, we'll do some core work, which will help to prepare us for the handstand that we're going to do next. So reaching forward. Imagine someone has you by the wrist, and we're going to slowly lower. So inhale. And as we exhale, we carefully lower, feeling the support of the bolster as we feel the low back arching, the middle back is supported, and we'll extend the arms overhead. And just take a few full deep breaths here. Feel your shoulder blades spreading out across the bolster. Clear your neck if it feels too contracted. Feeling some length in the abdomen here, so that we can be supple there. We don't want this hard muscular action in the abdomen all the time. We need to be supple so that we can get down into those deeper muscles closer to the spine. So we'll feel those now. We're going to lift the arms up away from the mat about shoulder height. Inhale deeply. Now, as we exhale, we're going to lift, so we're pressing the rib cage down toward the bolster and coming up like we're holding a big ball. Good. Inhale, we'll go back. So instead of going all the way back, we stop, arms shoulder height. Exhale, we lift. Good. Inhaling. Might be a whole lot of shaking going on. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. on this next exhale, we're going to come all the way up. So inhale back. And exhale. And make our way up. Great. So from here, we're going to work into a handstand. Megan and Sarah will do it without a chair. Teresa and I are going to use a chair, but we're going to use the bolsters to support our upper backs. So I think we're good and ready for that now. We've got our inner line fired up. Shoulders are open, hips are open. So let's come to standing. Take your bolster against the wall like so. I'm going to grab a couple of chairs. So if you're using a chair, you're going to place that about legs distance away from your bolster. And there may be some measuring that has to occur. You might not get it right the first time. But we are going to use the bolster to support the upper back. So if you are kicking, make sure that you are doing that in a controlled way where you're not whacking the wall with your foot. We want to try and use all of that strength that we have developed thus far. So we're going to place the hands framing the bolster. And then we'll step up here. I'm a little close, so I'm going to have to scoot my chair back. You look like you might be also. Let me scoot you back just a tad. There we go. Okay. These gals are up in their back in their handstands, and they're going to use the bolster. So go back toward it. Good. Teresa has worked up on her chair using the bolster for her upper back, and she's walked toward the edge of the chair, so she might grip that chair with her toes to eliminate any slipping that may occur. So really press your hands down into the floor. Feel the center of your armpit work back toward the bolster. So we're getting a little hollower there. And we want to feel, especially if you're on this chair, that you can hollow in the groin some. So maybe your heels lift up more over your big toes. I'm going to see if I can get Sarah away from the wall of her buttocks just a bit. Maybe flexing the feet. Good. And then feeling the ribs hugging back toward the bolster. Beautiful. Okay, move this chair. And then we're all going to slowly come down. So you can do it with one leg at a time. Lowering down. And you can take a downward dog or a standing forward fold. Whatever might feel nice to you. So probably, hopefully, feeling a much different downward dog at this point. Feeling your upper back, reaching for that bolster in front of you. So again, we're getting a more hollow feeling in the armpit rather than a flattening and a dropping down into the upper spine. So inhale deeply. As we exhale, we'll all drop to our knees. And then we're going to take our bolsters and we're going to move them forward and flip onto our back sides here for a revolved Shavasana. So we'll wrap up with a nice forward fold twist, one of my favorite postures. So we're going to take the right heel in, so as you would for Shavasana, but we're going to turn out a bit so that the heel is more in line with the pubic bone. And then we're going to take the bolster, we're going to flip it on its side and put it right next to the inner left leg. So the left foot is flexed, not a super hard flex, make sure you're not overdoing that, just a nice easy flex there. We're going to take the left arm up as we inhale. As we exhale, we're going to drop over. So you're going to hook your outer elbow against the bolster and put your fingertips down. And then we'll reach the right arm back toward the wall behind us. So you can turn your palm up to rotate the shoulder. Now feel your right hip settle down toward the floor. We're going to trace the inner edge of this posture. So with your right hand, start at the knee, run across the inner leg, across the bolster, and we open that up. So here we've got the bolster under the ribs. We can use that as a reminder to lift and turn. So we should be feeling this along the inner left leg. A really nice extension through the outer right rib cage and the outer right hip. Feel the head of your left humerus draw back toward the bolster, maybe revealing some more opening in the upper back. Notice what's going on with the left side of your waist. Can you lift it any and reveal more opening in the chest? Just taking some really deep cleansing breaths here after that arm balance. Feel your shoulder blades move out toward your arms. Maybe there's one more little turn in the lower part of the rib cage. Good. Inhaling, reaching that arm up. As we exhale, release. Ah, that feels great. Okay, so let's take that on the other side. Taking your bolster inside the leg. We're going to open up a little bit. So instead of straight arm, we're going to be at a bit of an angle. Get your bolster in. So the bolster should fit nicely into the contour of the arch of the foot here. We'll hug the other leg next to it. We'll take a big breath up into the right arm. And then as we exhale, we'll hook that over. Feeling your outer arm and outer shoulder connecting, fingertips down. Make sure the shoulder isn't popping forward a lot. Let that hug back. Reach your left arm back with the palm up. All right, and then feel your left hip anchor down. And we're going to trace the inner edge of this posture. So starting at the knee, running across the bolster, and then reaching the back of the hand up. Feel the shoulder blades spreading toward the arms. So we're not hunching the shoulders up around the neck here. We've got this bolster for leverage and for support, right? So notice how you can maybe lean into it a little bit, but out of that lean, you can find some more space. You can hug the bolster with your inner leg, feeling that little squeeze action that we felt earlier in half pigeon. A very instructive aspect of this practice, I find, when using the bolster. That half pigeon is a great teacher. Feel your outer hip and thigh drawing downward. Maybe you can lift a bit more. Maybe you can feel the lower rib cage turn slightly, softening the tops of the shoulders at each side of the neck. Great. Inhale, arm up, and exhale, releasing. So, I'm going to give you an option for the final posture, and I'm going to have everybody do a little bit of a different variation. So, Megan and Sarah, I'm going to have you take your feet together into Baddha Konasana and bring your bolster across the feet and into the middle of the legs there, and then you're going to fold over like so. Teresa and I are going to do it on our backs. So, giving you the option of a forward fold or a chest opener, right? So if you feel like you need a little more energy for the day, then you can take this back bend, chest opening variation. If you feel like not so much, I need to settle down, then you can take this forward folding variation. So with the back bending, we'll take the bolster right up next to the sacrum, carefully lower back, and we can take the legs into the same position, letting the arms straight down by the sides. If you find this is a challenge for your legs, then you may want to prop up with a couple of blocks or some blankets under the thighs, maybe even under the head. If your neck drops back into contraction too much on the bolster, you can just slide a blanket or a block underneath it. So we'll just all take some deep breaths here. Sealing our practice with some rest and some restoration. Noticing our breathing at this point. Noticing if we're resisting at all. And trying to really feel ourselves sinking toward the bolster. Feeling gravity pressing us down onto the earth. And enjoying the support beneath us. If you're in this back bending variation and you find that your ribs want to push away from the bolster, think about just tempering those, letting the weight of the rib cage settle down. If you find the crease of the hip contracting in the forward fold. Think about reaching your knees out to the sides of your mat. Rather than trying to push your knees down, just think about them reaching out, and that'll clear you a bit in that hip crease. Maybe a little rounding in the thoracic spine, right in the mid-spine, so that we can let the muscles around the shoulder girdle and the pelvic girdle release. Feel the weight of your head supported in whichever variation you may be taking today. Feel a softening from the base of the skull down through the neck, into the tops of the shoulders and the arms. One more really generous, rich breath here. Nice long exhalation. Slowly making your way up if you're in that forward fold. If you're in this back bend, we'll take one knee in at a time. You can grab the backs of the legs, tuck your chin, and carefully lift yourself away from the bolster. And we'll wrap up with a nice Shavasana, of course, supported by a bolster. So take your bolster out, and we will place it underneath the legs. So with a bolster under the legs, it's nice to have the femurs well supported so the lower half of your leg can drape over, and you can relax comfortably, and we can slowly lower down. So maybe bend your knees a little bit, get your feet on the floor, take a big breath, and we'll slowly lower. And then feeling any adjustments that need to be made, stretching the legs over the bolster, turning the palms and the creases of your elbows up. And I love to vocalize, so we're going to take some deep breaths and let out a great big sigh on the exhale. Inhale deeply. Again. One last time, letting everything go. Feel the weight of your body settling. The weight of the legs being supported by your bolster, the weight of the arms sinking down into the earth beneath you. Feel your jaw loosen at the hinge, and feel your tongue soften inside of your mouth, dropping away from the teeth or the palate. And feel all of the activity that we did lulling us into a more peaceful place now. We'll begin to take a deep breath, bringing back some awareness. Wiggle your fingers and toes. Reawakening your senses. We can take a roll through the wrists and the ankles. And then we'll start to extend some of that movement into the arms and legs. So you can put your feet on your bolster and roll it forward. Giving ourselves a nice long stretch. So we're at the wall. We might press our hands into the wall, really stretch the legs long. Open the mouth really wide. Stick your tongue out really far. Let out a big stretching your face and jaw. And then give your knees a hug. And rock a little from side to side, massaging around the mid and lower back. And then we'll roll over onto our right sides, resting there for a moment. Again, feeling the support beneath us. And then we'll carefully prop up. So using your hands, tuck the chin and feel yourself waving through the spine. Working your way into a comfortable seat. And we'll draw our hands together into prayer as a gesture of honor for ourselves and for each other for coming together and practicing, and for these great tools that have helped us to realize so much about our bodies and the possibilities that lie within. So thank you very much for taking the time out and joining us for practice today. Namaste. Namaste.